Please, thank you.
That's more accurate. I'm glad you know. I'm not a huge basketball person.
Okay.
Wow. You know how the back of the seats are?
Thank you for coming.
Well, we were. Sorry, sorry, it's cold. Sorry, it's cold. We were at our Charlotte.
Martha's giving out the program, and y'all can have a seat. Yes, that's right, but all we get is documented in one of these.
Oh.
And did you give one to Dr. Bullard? Okay, great.
Never mind, they're gonna come and sit in front, never mind.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell them this?
Yeah, ask them to, I've asked them already, I don't know if they will, but ask them again, yeah. Good afternoon. Welcome to this very special event, the first annual Clinical Frontier Ceremony. And I'm sure some of you, when you saw the name, thought, Clinical Frontier, never heard that. I actually had one of my colleagues say that. What does that mean? Where did you get that idea? I love it. I said, I came up with it. It's original for the Pfeiffer OT program. So you're probably thinking, okay, why Clinical Frontier Ceremony? So I'm going to let you in on the secret. You have been part of a trailblazing program that has generated many innovative changes for Pfeiffer University and Stanley County, North Carolina. We have broken many grounds. When you look up the definition of a frontier, that means uncharted territory. It could be a remote piece of land or a new field of study. But if someone calls it the frontier, that means you are challenged to explore it. You, OT students, are being challenged to push forward, to be the best that you can be, and to conquer this new clinical frontier that you are fast approaching. I want you to visualize the picture, the future. The future is bright. Even though many of you are focused on your fieldwork and anxious about how are you going to survive it, how will you do, there are many opportunities that are waiting for you to seize and take advantage of, and you have been well prepared for it. As an example, Dr. John Osler, the founder of Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, as a medical student, was sitting similar to you guys, worried about how am I going to do when I go on my internship? How am I going to do on my exams? And where was he going to establish into medical practice? Not even knowing that later he would establish the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, one of the world-renowned School of Medicine. So I am sure that out there sitting in one of these rows of seats, or many of them, are OTs that are going to do some amazing things. That is my hope and expectation for you. So the call to action, your main call to action is, do not focus on what lies dimly at a distance, but to do what lies clearly at hand. When you go to your fieldwork, I want you to be the hot, higher order thinking OT student or clinical practitioner that Pfeiffer OT faculty have taught you to be. So with this, I am going to turn the floor over to Dr. Bullard, our Pfeiffer University president, who will give you words of wisdom and congratulations. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Bullard.
Thank you, Dr. Fain. College presidents are offered the opportunity to see many, many studies that talk about how to help students perform at the top of their capability, and also how to keep students in school. I see one study annually called the National Survey of Student Engagement. This study is produced by Indiana University, and it gauges the quality of the practices that students are engaged in. And the folks at Indiana University have decided that students feel most challenged and are most likely to stay in school when they are involved in 6 high impact practices. 6 different practices. One of the practices that will just keep a student engaged is to interact with a professor outside of class within the first 6 weeks of his or her first semester in school. It's a life-changing thing to be invited into a professor's home, for example, for a class dinner on a Sunday night. Another high-impact practice is study abroad. This stretches your critical thinking and gets you into a culture that might be a little alien to you, and you're around people whose assumptions are not shared by you in many ways, or your parents or the folks who raised you. Stanford psychologist recently wrote, though, that the highest impact practice one can engage in is to take what you learn in a classroom and apply it outside of the classroom as a service to your community. So you might be an accounting major, and your accounting major might offer one March the opportunity to help people in the community with their taxes who can't afford an accountant. I'm often struck by nursing departments who combine with pharmacies and other groups to offer flu shot clinics. The Stanford educational psychologist quotes Aristotle and talks about tying down knowledge. Tying down knowledge. And he says that we're finding that you can be in the classroom as forever, but until you apply what you're learning outside of the classroom, there's very little evidence to suggest that you will retain that knowledge for a very long time. You, my friends, are about to tie down knowledge. You're about to take the things that you've been learning in classrooms. You're about to take the things that you've been practicing on each other, and you are about to meet some folks that you might not have known previously. You might enter situations that you might not have known about previously. You might interact with someone who grew up in a family with assumptions very different than the assumptions that you grew up with. My friends, this building was created, in fact, with an offer on the table from a very affluent city in our region to put this building somewhere else. In a very nice city, with a very healthy tax base, and with a free building attached to it. And the trustees that are on Pfeiffer's board and residents of this city stood up in a board meeting long ago and said, please, Stanley County needs Pfeiffer, and Pfeiffer needs Stanley County, and we want you to improve health outcomes here. So I don't know where your field placements will all be. They may be in a large city. They may be very locally. But I ask that you take this opportunity to tie down knowledge, interacting with people different than yourselves, and that you do so with Pfeiffer's mission that you become servant leaders in mind, that you are the folks who answer Christ's call to give the thirsty something to drink. Yes, give the hungry some food to eat, clothe the naked, tend the sick, right? Tend the sick. That is my call to you in this moment. You all are entering what some studies suggest is the greatest shortage in American healthcare by the year 2030. Occupational therapy is right there with nursing in some of these studies. Your anticipated salary in your first year of school, in your first year out of school, is already higher than when we did the feasibility study 3 years ago. These are all very wonderful things, but I pray that when you are engaging in your field work, that you won't forget what prompted within you the desire to do this. Treat the patient as a person and not a number. Treat them as if they were made in the very image of the God who created you and who calls you into this service. Thanks for coming. I hear my words as a challenge to you, but as a challenge to myself. And it's wonderful to be invited to this event. Good luck.
Now we're going to have a virtual speaker, Brenda Cannell. She is going to be speaking to you on ethics related to fieldwork. Brenda Cannell is an inspirational ethics expert, educator, clinician, and advocate. She, a couple of years ago, won the esteemed AOTA Roster of Fellows Award and has served on AOTA Ethics Commission, amongst many other things. She currently is the program director at Central Piedmont Community College for the Occupational Therapy Assistant Program. She and I have done numerous collaborative projects. She is here to give you words of wisdom in dealing with ethics while you're on your fieldwork. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you so much. Can you actually hear me? Uh-oh. Do you hear me? Oh, no. Please tell me that you hear me and see me.
We hear you and see you.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I have had some significant technical challenges today. So please, if at any point you stop hearing me, somebody shout something out. So thank you, Dr. Fain, for that lovely introduction. I had wanted to have a PowerPoint to share with you, but the last time I tried to share a PowerPoint, I lost the entire call. But if I did, it would have started with a dark screen with words scrolling down, kind of like Star Wars, and saying in a universe far, far away, you know, in a long, long time. But since I don't have that, I'll just say 45 years ago in Madison, Wisconsin, I was sort of where you are today. And my classmates and I were recent graduates ready to begin our level 2 fieldwork. And things were a little different for us, okay? We didn't worry about ethics because, believe it or not, there was no OT Code of Ethics in 1976. Okay, we couldn't go to Google or Facebook or other sources to learn about our fieldwork sites or our fieldwork educators because obviously those things didn't exist. we began fieldwork just concerned about going out there and doing well. And our experiences were pretty solitary because we graduated before we started fieldwork. So we didn't even have a connection to our faculty anymore. You are not going to have that kind of experience. You have so much more support available to you, but you also have challenges that didn't exist back in my day. So I'm assuming that you guys are really excited and you know what fieldwork is. ACOTE tells us that fieldwork is designed to promote clinical reasoning and reflective practice and develop professionalism and competence, and that you will carry out your responsibilities under the supervision of qualified personnel. That's really kind of all they say. So I did a little digging and looked at some things, and I came up with a few traits of an effective fieldwork educator. So obviously they would demonstrate legal and ethical behavior, and they would demonstrate professional attitudes and actions, and create a supportive learning environment, and communicate in a clear, consistent manner and provide constructive feedback. That would be great if you have a fieldwork educator that does that. What should we expect from you as a successful fieldwork student? Well, you also should demonstrate legal and ethical behavior and a professional attitude and professional actions. And you should display integrity, and you should be accountable for your behavior and your learning. And an interesting thing that, really didn't exist several years ago is an understanding of boundaries. And there's a very specific reason why I bring that up. So I'm not going to rehash the Code of Ethics. I will tell you that the 2020 Code of Ethics, which I was honored to be a part of developing, is really a great tool now for you to use, because instead of just aligning to ethics principles, which are still really lots of times open to interpretation, the new Code of Ethics really lays out categories of behavior and very specific behaviors that are expected. So for example, under professional integrity, responsibility, and accountability, it says that people should comply with current federal and state laws, state scope of practice guidelines, and AOTA policies and official documents. Okay, that's pretty clear. And then, Section 2 on therapeutic relationships tells you how to interact with your clients. And then there's a section on documentation, reimbursement, and financial matters. Tells you how to document your treatments and how to bill for them. And there's a section on service delivery, which again is on the actual delivery of therapy and not just your relationship with your clients, but also the service you deliver. But then there are the three remaining categories are professional competence, education, supervision, and training, and then one on communication and one on professional civility. So let's think about a couple of those things, because here's where ethics can help you when you're on fieldwork. So part of professional competence, education, supervision, and training is making sure that duties that are delegated to you are congruent with your credentials, qualifications, experience, competency, and scope of practice. So, and that another one is to provide appropriate supervision. So what I'm telling you, when you go out on field work, if you feel that you're being asked to do something that you're not really sure you're competent in, or that you're not really sure you want to be doing that by yourself, you need to go back to that accountability piece of that trait. You need to go back to this professional communication that you should have together with your fieldwork educator. And you should be able to say things like, I would really rather do that with you there the first time. Or can we practice that together a couple times before I go see Mrs. Smith? Or sometimes to say, I'm sorry, I didn't really learn that in school and I don't feel comfortable doing that. I can't think of a single example of where that might come up for you, but you never know, because I understand from Dr. Fain, you're starting your first field work, you're not done with all your didactic classes. So sometimes you'll meet a fieldwork educator who thinks you've already learned something that you haven't. So that's the important thing of using the Code of Ethics to ensure that you are given appropriate supervision and are not being asked to do something you're not qualified or competent to do. That section also talks about being honest and fair and accurate and respectful in gathering and reporting information about your performance. So another thing is, if you need to be getting regular feedback from your fieldwork educator about your performance, so that you don't go to your midterm meeting and all of a sudden hear a bunch of stuff. Not that I'm saying you would, but so again, that give and take, that two-way street of asking for feedback if you're not getting it. Another section 6, is on communication. And this really talks about things like confidentiality and informed consent and autonomy. And it talks about managing records and all of that. And of course, I know you'll all maintain confidentiality, but there's a couple of other things in there that are really important. And these are things that didn't exist even in earlier versions of the Code of Ethics. And I want to read this one to you exactly. And it says, demonstrate responsible conduct, respect, and discretion when engaging in digital media and social networking, including but not limited to refraining from posted protected health and other identifying information. So it's important for you to remember on fieldwork that obviously you can't post information that identifies your clients or things like that, but also it is important to be careful about what you put on social networking. So you can't take pictures at fieldwork and put them on whatever social media platform you use that shows pictures of clients receiving services. You can't say anything about your clients, but you also have to be careful about what you say about the facility and about the people that work there. Another thing that I think is really important, another standard in there, was to facilitate comprehension and address barriers to communication with the recipient of service or students. So a lot of us think of this as, okay, I need to make sure that the clients I'm serving and their family and caregivers understand what I'm saying or what I'm giving them to read. So I need to think about language and health literacy and culture and things like that. But we also have to think of it from the perspective of a student and a faculty member or a fieldwork educator. So if you have someone that's telling you to do something and you don't understand, it is on you and on that person. I mean, it's on that person to assure that you do understand and to address barriers to communication. But sometimes they don't know that you have a barrier to communication. They don't know why you're not getting it. And it is important for you to be able to say, I'm just not getting it. Is there another way to explain it? Can I watch you do it? But you need to make sure to explain to somebody that you're not understanding what's expected of you and not just get judged for not doing it well, because you can't do it well if you didn't understand what was expected in the first place. The last thing I want to say in that category of communication is there's another one that says, give credit and recognition when using the idea and works of others in written, oral, and electronic media. And that's just a little reminder that if you have to do a fieldwork project, that you make sure that you're not copying things from a textbook or copying things from your notes that a faculty member said, and you're not giving credit to where that information came from. I bring that up because I have presented in the past on this issue with another member of the Ethics Commission, and in us doing our research, that was a huge area of plagiarism, was people doing presentations and like lunch and learns and stuff and not crediting where their information came from, not like writing a research paper. All right, and then the last section of the Code of Ethics, which is entirely new, is on professional civility, and it's about conducting ourselves in a civil manner. So I'm not going to read you all the things, but I do want to remind you that everybody, every occupational therapy practitioner or student is expected to display cultural sensitivity and humility and to treat people with courtesy and not be bullying or intimidating. And so at any point, if you feel that those things are happening, it's important that you speak up. So what to do if a dilemma comes up when you're on fieldwork? Well, first I'd like to say, what should you not do? And what you should not do is put anything on social media. So you cannot go and say, oh, my fieldwork sucks, and my fieldwork educator is such a, and, you know, don't put the poop emoji or, you know, whatever. Like, don't take this out to the public. Okay, we've covered that. So what else should you not do? Don't panic. Okay, don't quit. Try not to cry. Crying is okay, but it should be done in the bathroom or in your car. And I don't want you to think that fieldwork involves a lot of crying, but I'll tell you, once in a while it does. I would not be honest if I didn't tell you that once in a while it does. But the other big thing is to not automatically blame everything on yourself. Okay, so don't assume if there's a problem in fieldwork that it's all your fault and that you're not good enough or smart enough or competent enough. Okay, but also don't blame everything automatically on your fieldwork educator. So not everything is that person's fault. In my many years of experience as an OT practitioner, as a rehab director, and as a faculty member and program director, what I have found is in virtually every instance, it is two people involved or more. It is not ever solely on one person. So what should you do? Well, first things first, take a deep breath, okay? Try to think things through and try to be calm. And if you can't be calm, then now is not the time to think it through. So you may have to put a pin in it and let it wait a little bit, okay? Until you get home or whatever. And make sure you gather all the necessary data. And while you're doing that, think about whose issue is this? Is this my issue that I'm unhappy with something? Is this someone else's issue because someone else doesn't think I'm doing something right? Is it a patient or family member's issue because they're upset and maybe there's nothing you can do about that? So you have to think about who's involved and whose issue it is. But you need to gather necessary data. So everything is not in the here and now. And I think sometimes, and I don't know your class, so I don't know the age groups involved in your class, but I'm going to go out on a limb and make a little bit of a generalization that our younger generation sometimes tends to be a little more here and now and not looking more at big picture and going back and looking at other things that came before. So, all right. So you get all the data that you need, and not just anecdotal data, but really looking at things. So think about who your resources are that could help you, and what resources, not just people, but what other resources are there that can help you. So things like the Code of Ethics, where you can go and it clearly spells out behaviors that should or should not occur. Think about other OTA documents like the OT scope of practice. And should I be able to do this? Look at the North Carolina Board of OT and say, are we allowed to do this in OT in North Carolina? Or maybe you go to another state. I don't know if any of you go to fieldwork out of state, but you may be here, but you may have a fieldwork educator that moved here from another state and they think it's okay for you to do X, Y, and Z. So those are important resources for you to look at. Look at roles, you know, find out, well, the roles don't really probably say that much about students, but what else can you do? Go to the policy and procedure manual at your facility. And you may discover, oh, I was supposed to do this, or wow, no, this isn't supposed to happen. And my fieldwork educator is not aware of that. Okay, so those are some of the what resources you have. Then think about the who. So it really depends on what your issue is. Your fieldwork educator may be your best resource because maybe it's another student that's there. Maybe it's a client. Maybe it's somebody in another department, like, I don't know, physical therapy or nursing. I'm just using those as examples. Maybe it's something that you personally are struggling with, but other students may have had this in the past. So your fieldwork educator may be a great resource for you. Sometimes your fieldwork educator may be part of the issue. And you can go back to your academic fieldwork coordinator because you have that wonderful connection at school where you can talk about things and say, you know, is this what's supposed to be happening? And then also think about your personal support system. So here you have to remember that you can't disclose details about the people you're serving, and you have to be careful about any disparaging details about the people you're working with. But your friends and your family and whatever your personal support system sometimes can just listen to you and let you vent and remind you of what a wonderful, strong person you are and how far you've come in this program and that you do have what it takes. And sometimes that's all you need. You just need someone to say, you know what, stop for a second and remember your value. So don't turn your back on your personal support system, even though they may not know anything about occupational therapy. Okay, so who wasn't on that list? Your classmates. Classmates may be valuable, but again, you have to be really careful, and you don't want to take a problem about fieldwork to a classmate who may be going there on another, you know, on another fieldwork rotation. So, you know, I tell you to be careful about that. All right, so you've gathered your data, you've looked at who and what are your resources. Now it's time for you to use those clinical reasoning skills and professional reasoning skills that you learned in school, and consider different options and generate more than one option. We should never just come up with an option and say, okay, yep, I thought about it. Here's what I should do. I'm going to go do it. Should always try to have at least 2 or 3 thoughts and then weigh those out and say, I mean, here's what you have to do is you have to take those things and say, okay, if I do this, what might be the result of that? And if I do this, what might be the result of that? And if I do nothing, because by the way, that's an option, I'm going to do nothing, what might be the result of that? So you have to consider all these options and their possible results, and then weigh all those options. And maybe at this point, you need to go back to some of those resources and think that through a little more. And then you got to do it. You got to pull the plug and you got to do it. And after that, you need to evaluate and see how'd that work out. Because, you know, sometimes it's not that big a deal, and maybe it didn't work out great, but, you know, it's not that terrible, but you won't choose that option again. So Dr. Fain told me to try to keep this to about 20 minutes, and I have no idea when I started, but I think that was around 20 minutes. So I would like to stop and see if anyone has any questions. And, you know, I am a teacher, so I will not go away until I get at least one question. Otherwise, I think nobody's listening.
Okay, this is a great opportunity to ask an expert a ethical dilemma you might be concerned about.
Ask the time question. Ask the time question.
Oh, yeah, I have a question. Hi, so as a field work, so, in my field work, we do work over full time. I wonder what's the most appropriate way to approach that topic, when your field work coordinator or CI works over 40 hours a week.
You do know that I can't hear any of what the question is, right?
Essentially, his question was about what do you do if the fieldwork educator is asking you to work over 40 hours? Is that the gist? Yes.
So, you know what? I would be surprised if you weren't working over 40 hours. I don't know what Dr. Fain has told you, but I don't have a dog in this show, so I'm going to be brutally honest here and say my experience with fieldwork is you're going to work extra. You know, especially when it comes to in the beginning and you're learning a documentation system, and it's probably an electronic system. And in the first few times you're writing notes, they're really not that great, and you have to stay and rewrite them. It's, you know, and Sometimes you're staying more than 40 hours because you need to do that because you want to learn the facility better and learn about the equipment there. It varies widely, of course, whether you're in an outpatient pediatric setting, you may not be able to work extra because they're closing and you have to leave. You're in the hospital though, they can say you have to sit here and stay until you finish putting those notes in because those notes have to be here today. That may not be exactly what you're asking because someone shouldn't say, I want you to stay and work for 10 hours, even though I'm staying here 8 hours and I'm leaving. What I'm saying is that I think sometimes they may say to you, you need to finish this today, and you think your day is over. I've known fieldwork educators that have said, I want you to make a plan of all the activities you're going to do with the kids on your caseload for tomorrow. And you're like, I mean, my students have been like, I just treated 8 kids and I want to go home. And your fieldwork educator says, sure, go home, but I want you to email me this list by 10 o'clock tonight. Unless they're asking you to do something unethical, sometimes these things happen. I don't know, Dr. Fain, what's your thought on that?
Pretty much concur with you, Brenda. Essentially, this is a learning opportunity for you. You want to take advantage of it. You want to learn how to do whatever extra they're asking you to do beyond the 8-hour day and accomplish it. And try to come up with some kind of happy in between, because there may be some circumstances where you need to revamp something. But you want to make this a win-win opportunity. So I would encourage you to really communicate with your clinical instructor and make it a win-win situation.
Now, I would add one thing. What is not okay is for your clinical educator to say, oh, we have 8 patients on caseload today. I'm going to stay here for the first 6, and then I'm going to take off early, and I'm going to go watch the new Spider-Man movie, and you stay and treat everybody else. Okay, that part's not okay. But the fact that it may take you more than 40 hours a week to get all your work done, I think that's part of the deal.
Any other burning question? If not, we're going to proceed. Yes, Cordera. Speak up so she can hear it, please.
At this stage in our career as a student, how do we effectively advocate for resources of a client that may not have the finances to assist a piece of equipment that they may need?
I didn't hear that.
At this stage in our career as a student in fieldwork, how do we effectively ask or advocate for assistive devices for clients that may not have the resources to get the equipment that they may need?
Okay, so I got part of that. So as a student, how do you ask for resources? But I missed part. Dr. Fain, can you repeat it?
Yes, essentially he's wondering, how do you advocate for your client and get the equipment that they need and not tap into their minimal budget that they have as OT students?
Oh, okay, meaning so that you don't have to go out and buy stuff for them. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So, that's what OTs are all about, right? I mean, if we're doing early intervention and you're in the home and they don't have any toys, it's not for you to go out and buy toys for that family. It's for you to teach that family how to make play out of things that are in their house, like Tupperware and colanders and, even toothbrushes or, whatever, wooden spoons. I mean, I think that our role, not just as students, but as clinicians, is not to spend our own money and to fix everything for our clients, but to help them figure out how to do it. So sometimes it's referring them, for example, to the North Carolina Assistive Technology Program, which has a lending library to lend all kinds of toys, mobility aids, adaptive living aids, communication devices, like all kinds of technology. So that's your role as a student, and as you move on as a practitioner, to know what kind of resources are out there that you can point your client to. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Yes. Great, thank you. Brenda,
But wait, let me just say one other thing. The other thing is, if it's a clinic or something, that also could be your fieldwork project, that you might make something, and it could even be handouts or whatever that a clinic could then give to clients, or it could be like kits that you make as a fieldwork project that the people that are there still can use in the future. So that's just another idea.
Great. Thank you, Brenda. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Congratulations, all of you.
Thank you. Okay, now for the next part that we've all been waiting for. We're going to be awarding the Clinical Frontier Bag to each of our OT students for the class of 2020. I'm going to ask Dr. Gaddy to come up. She's going to call the names. And when your name is called, you'll need to come up and get an item that Professor Paula Graham is going to be presenting and Dr. Amanda Davis. I had a mental block there. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go by alphabetical order. All right, so first we have Aaliyah Baldry. And you can pause for a moment with our professors and get a picture and, yeah. Sorry, I didn't say that. There you go. Okay. Elizabeth Bell. Brenda Calderon. Tom Curry. Joshua Day. Shelby England. Tara Johnson. Kenna Kersevan. Caitlin Leary. Christina Lee. Emily Lombardo. Cece Lee. Wendy McAllister. Cordero Milton. Michael Minor. Emma Murphy. Savannah Nager. Haley Normandin. Amy Rabb. Grace Rankin. Lindsay Saltmarsh. Steffi Simon. Sydney Sutton. Samantha Teague. Joy Thompson. Andrea Tivoli. Morgan Williams. And Isaac Ye. Now we'll have Dr. Bartholdi Okay, now we'll have Dr. Bartholdi for our recitation of oath.
Okay, for our occupational therapy professional oath, I'm gonna have all you guys please stand up, and the OTs as well. All right, from the privilege and rights this fieldwork brings, I hereby pledge to hold my knowledge in trust for the good of those people whom I serve. Therefore, I will endeavor to keep both the professional and the occupational needs of the clients and communities I serve foremost in my thoughts and actions, deliver occupational therapy services that demonstrate excellence at all levels of care while valuing and honoring diversity and respecting others as equals, advocate for the needs, services, and the rights of clients regardless of the constraints I may face, strive to always act in a manner that's consistent with the philosophical base and values of the profession by upholding the Occupational Therapy Code of Ethics, abiding by those in need and care and in face of personal risk, and upholding the dignity of all human beings regardless of their condition, and model and foster leadership and facilitate spiritual, personal, and professional growth for myself, my profession, and in others. In keeping with the high ethical and moral standards of Pfeiffer University, I will seek to be committed to lifelong evidence-based practice with pursuit of truth and dedication to building a human community of justice, respect, and mutual concern. Dr. Fain.
This concludes the Clinical Frontier ceremony. We all wish you the best. Remember, dream, believe, and achieve. We can't wait to hear your success stories when you come back for the summer semester. Now, I want each of you to stay afterwards, go to the back and enjoy some cake. And again, congratulations, everyone.